It's 1 o'clock. Seems I'm waiting for the people to join. So let's give a few more minutes.
Sure, sure.
People, whoever are joining, we are waiting for others to join. So I would like to give a few more minutes before I start. People who are joining, we are waiting for the others to join. So I'm giving a couple more minutes for others' benefit. We're 2 minutes into the time box. I would give just 2 more minutes, and at 1:05 Eastern time, I'm going to start. Thanks for being patient. Please mute yourself. One of four, just another 50 seconds or so, we'll start. Yep, it's 1:05, time to start. Welcome to everyone to this webinar. on how to conduct the virtual PI planning. And thank you very much for joining. So this is, my name is Ishwar. Actually, my introduction is in the next slide. I just wanted to mention about Cyberbahn, who I represent. I'm a SPC with them. And Cyberbahn Federal Solutions is a gold SPCT partner with Scaled Agile organization. And it's one of the very fastly growing organization that is owned by the woman. And we provide a lot of services in agile, scaled agile technology that includes consulting and training. And we have a great team in place. Those bring a lot of experience in multiple IT verticals, as well as in the agile and scaled agile area. So that's what makes the difference for us in the industry. And to mention it very specifically, we were the first people who did the virtual SPC training. It was during March 16th. Then there was a lockdown, and Scaled Agile has allowed us to do the virtual training. So we were in between, and we tried that, and we did it very well, and we got a very good feedback. So as a presenter, my name is Ishwar Jakula. I'm a SPC5 with a Lean Kanban University certified KMP, and I have several other certifications. As a profession, I'm an agile coach and also a SAFe trainer. And I have the credits from Scaled Agile organization as a SAFe exam developer. And I was an SME for SAFe courses development that are SAFe DevOps, Agile Software Engineering, and Lean Portfolio Management. And my details are here. And my education is a master's in computer science and engineering. So for today's agenda, though I wanted to talk about how to conduct the PI planning virtually, I also thought that for the benefit of the people who are new to the SAFe as well as PI planning, I have added some information related to the PI planning. And so this is the big picture that actually provides the latest version 5.0. And again, I'm going to take this presentation. I would be passing for the questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, anything, so please hold until end of the presentation. So introduction to the PI planning. See, well, both the Agile Manifesto and SAFe recommends face-to-face planning and working together. There were situations that organizations needed to work remotely. And in the current situation of unplanned travel restrictions and the COVID-19, so it has led to a fully remote situation where everyone is working from a separate location and interacting with the colleagues through the use of technology. So this leads to certain challenges that include guiding the necessary behaviors for remote working, still maintaining the lean agile mindset, collaboration with the online meetings, successfully and more productively conducting the remote events, and then mainly preparing and facilitating a successful PI planning event and execution. So these are all the challenges that we face in the remote environment. And for the people who do not know about PI planning, it's a 2 days of planning, and that contains preparing the business context, which would be presented by the executives and the product management team. They refine the features and bring them for the implementation to the PI planning event. System architect would be developing the vision and development practices. Again, like, development practices are if the train is looking at implementing the test first development or test driven development, behavior driven development, any of the DevOps implementation. So if the train decides to introduce any of these things, those would also be presented during the 2 days of PI planning session. Then there would be team breakouts on each day. So during the 2 days, teams will be working in their separate space in developing the plans. And at the end of the first day, management would be involved in making the adjustments to the team's plans based on the risks and dependencies that teams would express while they are developing their plans. And it goes to, at the end of the day, the confidence vote to decide whether the given situation, whether entire team is confident about delivering whatever was committed, and the 2 days of PI planning would end with a retrospective meeting. And this event can be conducted either in 2 days, as SAFe recommends, or if the distributed planning is considered, it can go up to 3 days also. I'm not getting into more details over here, nor I'm walking through the agenda, because that's not the main purpose of this webinar. So how do we prepare for the event? So there are different roles, and each role has got some work to do as a part of the preparation for the 2 days of planning event. And a release train engineer, who actually plays a vital role, he or she is the one who would be collaborating with other stakeholders on the train, and mainly looking at planning the context and agenda. Agenda is what are the activities that would be taking place during these 2 days, and who would be participating in those activities at what time. So all the schedule, everything is clearly stated in the agenda, and communicates that agenda to the entire ARC, to all the stakeholders, and invites the business executive, the top level executive in the vertical that the train belongs to, or portfolio, to provide the business context in the interest of teams to understand the mission, the enterprise mission or portfolio's mission, the goals, and so that all the teams would be aligned to the mission. Then the product manager. So product manager is responsible for the program backlog. Again, program backlog is the one which is used by all the teams on a release train. Again, program backlog contains the features, and it is product manager's responsibility to make sure that at least the top 10 features are refined well and are socialized with all the teams, so that there wouldn't be any surprises to the teams when they participate in the planning meeting. And then conveying again vision from the product perspective. So this vision that product manager is sharing with the teams is aligned to whatever the business executive is communicating about the future goals that the organization is moving towards. Then there are business owners. So these are the people who we can call them as sponsors in a waterfall environment, the people who actually decides what needs to be built, the solution that needs to be built. And they are the people who provide the business value for each of the features that the product manager is proposing to build. And architect, so architect and product manager, these are the two people who should be collaborating with each other, because the architect who proposes the enablers which are used to build the infrastructure, architecture, runway, or any compliance. So architect, when he or she creates the enablers, those need to be prioritized along with the business features that the product manager is proposing for. And in that way, architecture vision also is shared by the architect. And if there is a development manager, he would be sharing the development practices. Otherwise, it could be just mentioned during the architecture vision. And then there are agile teams who actually build the solutions, and these people would participate in the team breakouts. As I said, there would be team breakouts, one on each day. So on the first day, teams will develop the draft plans, and on the second day, they finalize the plans. Then they participate in the confidence vote as well as in the retrospective meeting. Now let us come to actually, I wanted to quickly walk through what a PI planning is. And again, the focus of this WebEx is to talk more about how to do this planning event in a remote environment. So challenges in the remote environment are, logistics. Basically, people use phones or their computers for videos, and there would be possible noises in the background or blurred pictures, or they don't have the bandwidth for the to have both voice and video, and that would be caused by the network issues, and multiple people talking at the same time. So these are various problems under the logistics. So behaviors, it's again another very important for any program, and especially in agile programs, having a solid rapport across the teams. And when people are remote, developing these personal connections is a challenge where everyone is remote. And teams collaboration. So bridging the gaps in communication between the teams is a challenge, particularly when we are dealing with an art of size of more than 125 people or so. So again, like this number 125 is what SAFe recommends. 50 to 125 plus people, is a reasonable number to form an agile release train. And if the number grows beyond that, then there would be, very complex situation in communication channels. And if the number, and again, like in my experience, I have seen teams with 150, more than 180 or so. And of course, if the number goes beyond that, then people consider splitting that train into 2 release trains. But when face-to-face planning itself has got so much of challenge with such a large numbers, then imagine remotely if you have to deal with so many people and so many communication channels, it really becomes a big challenge. And in the collaboration point of view, most of the times, to all the people involved in the planning event, RTE or somebody needs to communicate the same information to all the people at the same time. that would become a challenge. And chaos would occur when everyone starts talking. And it becomes more challenging when there is a scrum master or product owner or shared resources who support more than one team, because they need to be everywhere in the teams that they are supporting, and it becomes very challenging for these people who are supporting more than one team. And developing plans is one of the challenges. In face-to-face environment, teams will have their own room or space to work together. Like even if they're doing a big hall planning, then they may have separate tables, and it would be easy for them because everybody that belong to a particular team will sit together and they work together. But in remote environment, creating team boards become challenging. I mean, say these people, when they are discussing as a team, one of the purposes of the team breakout sessions is all the teams, sit together, and they usually use flip charts for each iteration, and they plan their features accordingly in each iteration. So they use multiple ways of developing their plans. But when it comes to remote, where individuals from different, the different locations, they all need to be coordinating with each other in developing these plans. So that becomes a challenge. And then Gemba walks. During the planning, several people, several roles like release train engineer, architects, business owners, several people, they have to collaborate frequently to discuss any kind of trade-offs or negotiation on the business value. And again, that becomes a challenge. And during the normal PI planning event, there would be a regular monitoring on the progress. And RTE needs to connect with the Scrum Masters as a part of the Scrum of Scrums to understand how the progress is happening. And if it is a normal situation, RTE can just walk to the teams and talk to the SMs. The Scrum Masters, pull them whenever he or she thinks there is a need. But in a remote environment, it becomes challenging because, first of all, finding out the status of different Scrum Masters, he or she, RTE, needs to make a lot different attempts to find out in which room a Scrum Master is, and what he is currently supporting. What he is currently doing. So that becomes again a challenge, and particularly when the people are shared. Then the important thing is roaming the risks. So whatever teams identify during the planning, when they are developing their plans, they also put together a flip chart for risks. And these risks, all the teams need to bring to the main hall, whereas RTE, release train engineer, will be talking about each risk, and people start identifying whether they own the risk, or they accept the risk, or they have a mitigation plan, or a particular risk is resolved. So the full form of ROAM stands for risks that are resolved. R stands for resolved. O stands for owned. A stands for accepted, and M for mitigated. So teams would be talking about if some risk is that belongs to a particular team, they can come forward and say that they own the risk. Now, imagine in a remote environment Now, how is it possible? I mean, so there are ways, of course, that we are going to discuss in detail, but this is another major challenge. And again, uh, when a risk is proposed, if several people start talking together, then that leads to confusion, and also that would lead to maintaining the time box difficult. Now the confidence voting. So confidence voting, just like the roaming of risks, everybody participates in the confidence voting. So usually in a normal environment, face-to-face environment, release train engineer can ask the people to stand in different groups. Like fist of five is used for confidence voting, and people who say, like, they have confidence, too confidence, like, they show two fingers, they raise two fingers or three fingers or four fingers. So it's like a fist of five. So it would be easy for the release train engineer to group them in a normal environment. But when it comes to the remote environment, it becomes another challenge. So these are various challenges in remote planning. Now let's come to look at strategy to overcome these challenges. So there are various ways, and again, like this is not the only solution. This is what we have tried, and we have seen the success. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to share our experience, and particularly I myself have been delivering trainings remotely. So I'm making use of technology very well, and that is also one of the source for me to put together this strategy. And maybe, like, if you are using different technology for connecting with the people, maybe like you have other options as well. But looking at the experience that I have gained, I have put together this strategy. So first thing is usage of the digital tools. And there are several digital tools that are available in the market today. And you may want to try exploring several tools, but make sure that your organization actually recommends, or organization's policies. Like if you take Zoom, right? In India, the uses of Zoom, there are, like, several restrictions on usage of Zoom. And even Zoom has realized, and these days, password is enabled, and that is a must to join any Zoom meeting. So in that way, like, you may want to check with your organization before you go for selecting any of the tool. And again, like, there are different tools that I have listed in one of the slides at the end. And again, it is not only choosing the tool, but also providing a quick training to all the people on how to use it for different purposes. So if the people are not aware of how to use them, then it becomes very difficult when those tools are actually used for the planning event. And it is always a good idea to test the tool usage before the event. And most importantly, make sure that you're recording that entire event, so that people can use it for any missing content, or or any of the points. Next one is creating the guidelines. So everyone should go on mute is one of the guidelines that we can communicate. Like, I was mentioning that please go on mute, to everybody who is on this webinar. And I also have requested that people wouldn't be talking or having any questions to hold until the end of the session. So these are like some of the guidelines. And again, ask everyone to check their connection and voice and video ahead of the event. So most of the times, if audio goes with video, it is very good, because when you are talking to the people, if you are talking to them on a video, that would be making more impact than if you are not talking on the video. And by the way, I'm not showing myself on this video because I wanted you to focus on the slides. But otherwise, when you're on a day-to-day work, it is always a good idea to have the video on. And again, if suppose you are working in a team, like as a part of the stand-up meetings or team breakout session during the PA planning event, then whenever somebody wants to talk, it is always a good idea to use the option of raising the hand, so that if it is like in the main room where all the teams are in the same room, then RTE would know, and he or she can let the person to speak. Or in a group, it could be a SPOC or your Scrum Master who can let you speak. And then a clear communication is very important. Again, what do you really communicate? So first thing is, like, release train engineer communicates the event agenda and through the email, and ask the teams to walk through so that everyone knows their schedule of events. So this release train engineer, when sending the agenda, that again, like the agenda contains the sequence of activities along with the time and who are the people that would be participating in that activity is clearly mentioned, and communicating that ahead of the meeting and making sure that everybody receives it is a recommended option. And also ask the people to take a printout of that, so that it is handy for them and they know when they would be participating in a particular activity. And also another recommendation is that put the times based on the geography. So usually an RTE would be sending a schedule with most of the times it happens like on-site time zone they would be mentioning. But in a remote environment, if more than one geographic location is participating in an event, then it is a good idea to have another column added to put the specific geographic time on that, so that people don't have to do math to calculate their timelines. And plan for a dry walkthrough for a quick 10 to 15 minutes, explaining how the event is going to be conducted with the details, at least 1 or 2 days prior, so that people know what is expected and how they can respond and how they can act. And if they have any questions related to the activities they are going to participate, or using the tool, they would be able to clarify those questions so that you can anticipate a smooth conducting of the event. And if possible, another idea also is that from the product manager, so usually in a face-to-face planning event, what happens is product manager, he will present the features on a information radiator, so that everybody sitting in the hall can be able to see those features. And again, like when different geographies are participating, which is a common situation. So people will be co-located in different geographies. So they will use one single big monitor to go through those features. So since here, it is complex or not possible to maintain one single screen that is being shared across the teams, because teams would be again in turn sharing their screens to their individual teams. So it would be a good idea if the RTE can also send those features in the email, so that the teams will keep a printout of these features as well as the schedule handy, and that would give better understanding of what they are going to work on and when they are going to work on them. And then ask everyone to make sure that they are marking the activities that are completed, so that there would be a less confusion. So if you have never seen a PI planning agenda, it would be a few pages of schedule, because a lot of activities are involved in that, and with a lot of timelines. So it reduces the effort to see where they are currently. Then breakout rooms. So this is the major challenging thing, because teams need to be working within their groups. So for that, creating the breakout rooms for the team's use is very much recommended option. And these days, all the digital tools provide these breakout rooms, and provide that co-host access to the people who need to switch between the rooms, like scrum masters or product owners, architect, and other shared resources. These people need to be switching between the rooms, and if they have the access permissions, then they would be easily able to join different rooms and can talk to the people. And whatever plans that teams are developing, it is digital boards also provide a whiteboard. Then one person can share the whiteboard, or you can use any of the Microsoft documents as well, like Word or Notepad, or any of these apps that you can share. Like one person can volunteer to start typing with the inputs coming from the entire team. And Scrum Masters doing this whiteboarding may not be a good choice, because these people need to be moved between the rooms, and not only that, they have to collaborate with other stakeholders, like release train engineer, product managers, and based on the team's needs, they have to be connecting with others. So that's one of the reasons why SM may not be, Scrum Master may not be a good choice to do the whiteboarding. And it's a good idea for RTE to use the global messaging option. So what happens is, every team, when they are into their own breakout rooms, if RTE wants to send a message, something like he or she needs all the teams to be brought to the main room. In such a situation, if he or she gives a heads up to all the teams saying that, hey, in another couple of minutes, you're all going to be brought back into the main room, so that people can wrap up their work, and then they would be ready to get back to the main room. And release train engineer also collaborates with the Scrum Masters through the Scrum of Scrums, where it happens once in an once every hour for a quick, very 5 minutes of time. The objective of these Scrum of Scrums during the planning event is to know how the teams are progressing towards developing the plans. And I had been using the word developing the plans. So the meaning of that developing the plans is that they are, they know they have assumed the features from the program backlog when the product manager has presented them, and identifying the required user stories, and identifying the risks involved, identifying the dependencies, putting together all these are the plans of the teams. And along with this, they also will develop the team PA objectives. So for all these, they need to create different whiteboards or different documents, and in order to see if they have any impediments, any roadblocks, then they can take the help of Scrum Master. And when Scrum Masters sync up with the release train engineer, they can bring those issues so that release train engineer can bring the right help to them. And also it is a good idea to provide the ability to create breakout rooms to the SPOC. Say a Scrum Master, let us say. So the use of this is these people, means Scrum Masters, can pull the required people from the other teams. Like a Scrum Master in one team, and the team is discussing and they identify a dependency, and they want to talk to somebody from other team. So now that other team would have been discussing in a separate breakout room. So if the Scrum Master has that ability to join other breakout rooms, then he or she can either join there and talk about the dependencies, or can pull the right resources into their current team's breakout room so that they discuss about the dependencies and they can plan accordingly. Now, once the stories that are identified, these stories need to be sized. So one of the guideline or a strong recommendation is that during the PA planning event, teams would be, if the train is following a default time duration as 10 weeks, that is, SAFe recommends that PI, program increment duration, to be between 8 weeks to 12 weeks, but most of the organizations follow a default 10 weeks of PIs. That means 5 iterations. So for these 5 iterations, during the breakout sessions, teams would be planning the user stories into different iterations. And again, to add the point, if you are aware of PA planning, then the 5th iteration is an IP iteration, so you don't plan anything for that. So now, the user stories that are identified for the first iteration, it is always a good idea to get to the details, size them, and make them ready for the implementation, because usually this PA planning event happens in the current PA duration during the last week. So the teams should start working on their sprints right next week after the current week. So they may not have enough time to work on those stories, so they have to detail enough those stories. Now, during the story sizing, in a face-to-face environment, people can easily look at each other and they can do the sizing. But here, in a remote environment, there are online apps that are available for people who have smartphones, and they can install them and they can use them for sizing, and Scrum Masters can facilitate that. Then management review. So once all the teams are left after the first day evening, management, product managers, product owners, architect, release train engineer, and these are the people who would still remain in the room. And all the whiteboards are the documents that individual teams have used or created for the plans. If they keep them in their rooms in a shared mode, then a management team with all the roles that I have mentioned can just join individual rooms and go through, identify the risks, and based on that, they would come up with some of the adjustments that are required, and they make those adjustments, and release train engineer will again create another whiteboard in the main room, and make a note of all those adjustments, so those can be communicated to the teams on the next day. And for roaming the risks, again, as we discussed earlier, so use the whiteboard. It's like RT when he or she is facilitating, just put a whiteboard and then ask the people to raise the hand if somebody is going to respond. Either they are resolved or whatever from the roam. So that's a good idea, and make sure that all the whiteboards are saved. And confidence voting, fist of 5. So release train engineers can use the polling option. And this polling option is available in all the digital boards. So based on if it says that, and these polling options can be created while the meeting is being set up. And based on he can call people who are saying number 1 can poll now, number 2 can poll next, and that's how he or she can get the numbers. And then retrospective, again, like use the whiteboard or a Microsoft document to log the comments, and make sure that it is shared online, everybody can see it. And it also is a good idea to email it to the people. Then for team boards, PI objectives, and program board, the digital tools provide the features, like I'm talking about the digital board, digital tool features on creating the team boards and program boards. So make use of those boards so that you will be able to digitalize, like in a normal environment also, like once the physical board is created, people tend to create the digital boards, and Jira provides that option, version 1 provides that option, and any other agile management tools would provide that option. And in the same way, team PI objectives that are rolled up to become program PI objectives, these also can be captured on the whiteboards. So now these are the boards to be created. I know we are at 1:49, and I would give you, definitely a few minutes of time for questions, but these are the boards that need to be created. Team boards for different iterations, then team PI objectives, dependencies, risks, and program level PI objectives, management review adjustments, program board, roaming of risks, and retrospective feedback. Like these are various boards that need to be created. And whether individual teams are using the whiteboards or Microsoft documents or whatever, but these are the ones that need to be created, shared, and saved, and everybody should be able to view them. And these are some of the digital tools. Zoom is something that I had been using extensively these days. It provides the polling option and creating the breakout rooms and whatever I just explained. And Miro is another very good tool. Some of my colleagues at Cyberbond had given me very good feedback about Miro tool. So you can try that. And WebEx, Skype, or Microsoft Teams also other options for you to consider. And I might not have listed all the available tools in the market here, but you can try them. And again, when you're trying them, make sure that they are aligned to your organization's policy. Now it is exactly 1:50 and we got 10 minutes. So I open it for the questions now. Any questions? Is there any problem in unmuting? I think I have unmuted all.
Yeah, we can unmute ourselves.
Okay. So I know that, if you are new to PA planning, maybe, I did not cover PA planning in detail because my intention was to focus much on the challenges, during the remote PA planning and, what are the strategies and tactics that we can apply to overcome those challenges. So if you have any specific questions about PA planning, then you can reach out to me. If you want to talk about them, then I can provide the required help to you. But from this session, any questions? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, then thank you very much for your time and have a good day. Be safe. Bye.
Thank you, Ishwar. Thank you, Ishwar.
Thank you. Bye-bye.